What's going on, everybody? My name is Brock Lambert, and welcome to episode 4 of the 21 Plays podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about my first ever unofficial visit. And before we talk about anything and anything at all, yes, I know my voice does not sound the best. It is hoarse, and I've been screaming and yelling for the past 3 days, whether it was at my first football game on Thursday, whether it was the Friday night lights game for varsity. That's probably when I actually lost it, but that did not help either. And then also continuously talking and screaming yesterday at the game. So if it sounds not that great at points in this podcast, that's exactly why. Now, before we do anything, I want to give a quick thanks to the Furman football program and all the coaches that brought me back, especially Coach Hendricks and Coach Sims. They made the process super easy. Coach Sims was able to guide me through how to do everything and just how to have a good time. And then also Coach Hendricks for, of course, extending the invite back in the summer. I really appreciate it. You got a great football program going up there, and I certainly hope to be back one day. Now, today, we are going to be talking about basically just what the day was like yesterday. We're not going to have any interviews or anything like that. We're just going to be talking about what I did in the morning on the way there, at the game, what they showed me and everything like that. So we're just going to be getting a quick overview and, of course, my reaction. So nothing too crazy today, nothing too in-depth. But without further ado, let's get right into it, guys. Now, as I said before, guys, we're just going to be going over the entire day just in general. So to start off in the morning, I was kind of thinking, what do I really do? Because I'm very unfamiliar, obviously, as this being my first one. So I was not familiar with how the unofficial process goes. I hadn't really asked anybody, which was a mistake on my end. I'll make sure I do that next time, whether it be for an official or another unofficial. And a guy ended up actually asking me how that works, so I ended up telling him. So I realized now it's smart to ask them. But I woke up and I was just kind of ready to take in whatever was going to happen. I wasn't really expecting much of anything. I figured maybe they'll tour a little bit and maybe talk to me just for a little bit, but that's about it. I didn't really think a ton was going to come out of it. And so I just kind of sat there. Going there, I was almost like, wow, what's really going to happen? I'm on an unofficial visit. This is pretty crazy. And so I just kind of thought about it and was almost in awe, but not really at the same time. I didn't know how to feel because I wasn't ready for it. Well, it wasn't that I wasn't ready for it. It was almost that I just didn't know what to expect. Now, when we got there, I had asked Coach Sims where we were supposed to meet, and it was in the Pierce Horton building, which is the new complex, relatively new complex that is connected right to the football stadium. And funny thing is, you didn't know where to park, so we were kind of on our own in that aspect, but I'll make sure I get that information next time. This was where I was probably going to need to not necessarily make my mistakes, but take in the most, because the coaches are pretty familiar with me. I feel like they like me, so I was almost allowed to make these kind of mistakes. So I'll make sure I'll do that next time. But we went in, they greeted us immediately. We didn't have any real issues walking in, kind of knew where we were going, and so that made the experience a little bit easier, just knowing kind of the campus already, because I had been there 3 to 4 times before already. I'd been to their football camps. And so it was a little bit familiar because I had been there a couple times during those camps. So I kind of understand where certain buildings are in relation. But how the whole process with their football team worked, I had no idea. But once we got there, we watched a little video. They showed us a presentation, and I actually talked to the coaches for a little bit. I talked to Coach Sims for a good bit and just talked to some of them. And then found out a couple of facts about the university. They graduate 96% of their students, and I think that's really cool. And they were saying how they were having great success on the field and in the classroom, so that was good to hear. And also, they just gave some other facts, football and academic-wise, made it known that it's going to be a challenge, but that they're going to help you. Now, when we toured, that was a really good tour, actually. The guy was very nice. Wasn't too quiet, so you could easily hear him. Made it a lot easier. The facilities were super nice. The weight room and the dining places and just every place we went to was very nice, very well done. So I was very pleased to see that. And the building is not super huge like Carolina has a giant ops building. This is not that big of a building, and it felt just humongous from the inside. I mean, it felt like I was in the ops building, but I wasn't at the same time. So it was really cool to do that. And it was also a very attractive place. I was almost thinking this was a really nice place to spend 4 years of my college days. That it seems like a very nice place to go, and it's definitely worth it. And then also they gave us some on-field passes that for pregame and postgame. Very nice additions. Thank you, Furman, because those are nice things that not everybody gets to do. Now, when we went on to the warm-ups on the field with those passes, I wish my school would replicate things like this, but at the high school level, it's different maturity-wise. But everybody had headphones in. They were locked, loaded. They were ready to go, and they were ready to play ball. They weren't joking and goofing around. They were ready to play ball, and I wish we could do something like that. But then again, I understand why not, and whether that's possible maturity level or something just they don't like to do. I mean, it would be a nice addition, but it's not necessary. So what can I do about it? I just do what my coach tells me to do. And another thing I noticed, everybody wore the same clothes, and you looked like a team. Some weren't wearing pants, and some were wearing shorts, and some were wearing purple and white. Everybody wore white shirt, white pants, white socks, white cleats. Everybody wore the same thing, and they looked like a true team. And it was nice to see, and definitely a good look for them. Now, moving on to the game, it was a great football game on Furman's end. The entrance was cool with the mascot that they have, which is Sir Ryder and Fury. Sir Ryder is the guy that rides the horse in front of the team. The horse's name is Fury, and he wore the same night suit beforehand, during, and after the entire time, never took it off, and that was cool. Something little like that makes it kind of cool. And they had a great game. The running game was massive. I hate to butcher this name, but Devin Wynn had a monster game for Furman, had 12 carries for 131 yards and a touchdown, and just overall the running game was huge for their win. They were making play after play after play, and it just seemed like that Charleston Southern could not stop what they were doing. They had 5 rushing touchdowns out of their 46 points, so 35 of their points came on rushing touchdowns, one by the quarterback, and then a bunch of other running backs got in. Even the big fullback got in, and everybody lost their mind because it's always nice to see the big boys score. And one of the things I noticed that was not really like stat-wise, it was just their kicker, Grayson Atkins. He can boot the ball, man. He was just killing and kicking the skin off of that football. It was on kickoffs and field goals. I mean, you could hear it, and it was going. He could kick it really far. So that's something I noticed as the game went on. And their quarterback had a great game himself. His name is Darren Granger, I believe is how they pronounced it. It was number 4, just like me. My number now is number 4. So we on the same page in that aspect. But he had a great game himself. He was 14 of 20, completed 70% of his passes for 130 yards and 1 passing touchdown. His longest was 28, and he played well. He was only sacked 1 time, so good job by the offensive line in that aspect. Had a QB rating of 141.1. So he had a great game himself. So it was a healthy mix, but it was really that run game that pounded in on Charleston Southern's defense. And also, it was only his second start. So, I mean, he played very well for a second start. He got in last year 1 time, but now he's the outright starting quarterback, and he played well and stepped up to the plate. And They split the title last year for the Southern Conference champions, as that's the conference they're in. They split the title with Wofford, and from the way it looks, if they play the same thing, and again, they are an FCS school, but still, they're one of those schools, in my opinion, that I feel could surprise almost if they were to play a big team. They got to play Virginia Tech. They can do it. I think they could make that a game. I really think they do. And Virginia Tech, we all saw it last year. They lost to Old Dominion. It was in Old Dominion. I think that'll be in the back of their heads, obviously, but still, Furman, I think they could make that a ball game, possibly come out of there with a win. So I'm definitely looking forward to that game. I think they could repeat as champs, but I think this time they'll be outright. I have not seen all the other teams play, but I'm making that bold prediction right now that I think they could win Southern Conference Championship outright. And watch out for that running game, man. Coach Sims is the guy I've been talking about this entire time. He coaches running backs. They did a fine job. So, Coach Sims, you're doing right over there, Coach. So, good job with the running backs. And the post game, it was a nice send-off. Just got to walk on the field, meet a couple coaches, talk to the quarterback coach. It was a nice send-off, and it was a good way to end a great day. Got me a free poster, and it was a great overall experience. Overall, everyone was nice and welcoming, and I absolutely loved it. It made me feel at home, and it didn't feel like I was on campus. It felt like they were treating me as if I was one of their players, and I'm just a 10th grader from Spring Valley, and they treated me much more than that. So I absolutely thank them for that, and they did a great job. They run that school very well, and it's a good place to go to get a good education. And guys, before we go, I just want to tell y'all a couple of things that you need to do before you go there, and kind of the things you need to have in your head and ready to answer when those coaches come to talk to you or when the conversation just comes up. One of the things you need to know is who your recruiter is. You want to be able to identify who that is so you can talk with them and get to know them very well, so that when they come back in the fall for your practices and come to look at other players, and especially if you're a guy like me, maybe they'll know you by name and you can keep that relationship. So make sure you know who your recruiter is, and then also talk to them when you get there. Also, make sure that you know what you want to study when you get there, and know, of course, if that school offers it, that major or those kinds of classes. And then know what you want to study, because you need to make a good impression, so that you're not just walking in blind and it's like, oh, the school's here, but you don't know what you want to study or if you can even study it. You need to just understand the academic side of things more before you just walk in there and say, oh, I'm a football player, because at that school they push that you're not just a football player, that you are a student athlete, and that you are going to perform as such. And of course, student comes before athlete. Also, you want to know what attracted you to that school, because you don't want to just walk in and say, oh, it's a cool school, whatever. And they're going to ask you, what do you like about this school? What brings you to it? And you want to be able to tell them, well, I like this, this, and this, and I like this kind of tradition or something y'all do on the football team, that kind of thing. You want to know what exactly draws you to that school so that you can answer that question when it is asked. And that'll wrap it up, guys. Thank you all for listening. I'm still trying my best. I know I say this every podcast, but I'm really trying my best to put these out. I figured, you know what? I went on this Unofficial. Let's make a podcast about it. And so I'm trying to get something out. So once again, I don't ghost you guys, but make sure you follow me on my social medias. I'm actually going to link Coach Sims's social medias and all of Furman's social medias down in the description below. With Coach Hendricks and Coach Quarles and some of the guys that I talked to. I'll link all their stuff in the description below. Make sure you give them a follow. Tell them I sent you. And other than that, guys, I'll see you guys next time. Peace out. Through the wastelands, through the highways, and